I actually think that the power of connections has been the story of my life. Diving a little bit deeper into that story, because hopefully that conveys how important this has been for me personally, and I hope everyone here recognizes the potential and the value of these connections that you can build. I want to sort of spend a little bit of time, actually now more philosophically and metaphorically, talking about how I've gotten here. So, as I said, I moved here to New Zealand when I was 16, came here for undergrad, and it was a great experience, but I still didn't feel through the 3.5 years of my undergrad experience that New Zealand was really home. And, I did my undergrad, went on to started my PhD with Professor Gluckman in neuroscience, which was fantastic. Somewhere along the way, again, very serendipitously, the actual stories, and I don't know if I've said this before, I lived in O'Rourke, which is the university hostel across from Simon Street, and I missed dinner. And so somebody said there's a postgraduate student association meeting where they're going to have some food. Do you want to show up? So I'm like, well, I've missed dinner. I'm going to keep myself open to new opportunities and new people. And so I turn up and I meet Mr. Jeff Witcher, who's my guest here today. And that cascaded a series of events that led to the creation of Spark, the University of Auckland Entrepreneurship Challenge. And what I realized through that experience, and this is really important, that the reason I didn't feel New Zealand was home until that point where I started Spark was because I hadn't engaged with the community. It was a choice I hadn't made, and it was that engagement and that feeling of contribution back to the community and the society that we live in that is really important for embracing and getting involved and making a place home. And so when that had happened, Spark sort of obviously over the last decade has gone on to become a leading transformational source of creating an entrepreneurial spirit in the University of Auckland, but broadly amongst Kiwis, with the mission, and this was something I think the Minister touched on. I think it's important, and this is what Spark strives for, is for all of us as New Zealanders not to see ourselves as engineers or doctors or mathematicians or musicians. It's more important for each of us to see ourselves as key drivers for the growth of New Zealand's economy. And I think that's central if we have to grow as a nation and move up within the OECD indices as a place where people want to continue to live in and have an improved standard of living. Powerful connections traverse huge distances and geographies, huge sort of time lapses and generations even, and huge diversity and ethnicity. And I think it behooves the people to make sure that they can nurture these strong connections with utmost authenticity. I think one of the things I know my Kiwi friends at business school found really hard was just this concept of networking. It was sort of this burden that you had to turn up somewhere and you had to turn your charisma switch on and you had to talk to all of these people. It's exhausting, but it's only exhausting if you treat it as a transactional relationship, which is aimed at building these massive networks. The moment you move it away from transactional relationships and access to networks to building authentic, strong connections and meaningful connections, I think that's the differentiator. So for me, when I'm at any one of these events, if I can meet one or two people who I really connect with, that's a success. I do not try to meet like as many people and go on this executive speed dating thing. I cannot stand it. And I think that sort of gets lost when people feel like they have to access this plethora of human networks. I don't think that really works. So through the Spark journey, eventually, decided that I loved science, but what I really enjoyed was commercializing science and taking a kernel of an idea and creating something that was valuable for a greater community and a greater society. And decided business school would be a great place to build networks and learn some of these concepts in more detail. So went to business school at Harvard, and over there what was interesting was that I had a great access to networks, But what became really important was connections. But I think it's important to recognize these are two very different things. Connections are what you make with individuals. These are really powerful. And networks are the access to the diaspora of people through those connections. But your networks are only as powerful as your connections. So it's more important to have a few strong connections than large access to networks. So what does all of this mean for New Zealand businesses? And I know we've had a lot of conversation about, there's 4 million plus people here in New Zealand, but what that also means when we talk about 1 million plus people or 1 million plus Kiwis overseas is that we have 1 million plus Kiwi business development team. That's what it means. People always ask me, Priv, how are you contributing back to New Zealand? You don't even live here. And I feel like in my own way, the access to my connections is the best that I can do for New Zealand in my own way, which is not to say that, everyone leaves New Zealand. I think there's a blend, a really powerful blend that we have the opportunity to access. The people who are here, who are working hard to get New Zealand moving upwards in the economic trajectory, and people who are overseas who are waiting with open arms to help in any way they can to take New Zealand to the forefront of the world. But in addition to the 1 million plus Kiwis that are living overseas, by embracing multi-ethnic interconnectivity, you have access to hundreds of millions of people across diversities, across countries, across nationalities. And I think that's the kind of access that we can create through building powerful connections. And what's really important there is, and this sort of to sum up the conversation here, is that we keep our minds open and are ready to engage. I think that's really important. This isn't about, I'm from India and grew up in Oman. This is about, as I said, I'm a global citizen who's had the good fortune of embracing experiences from Oman and India and has made a decision to call New Zealand home. And I'm going to tie all of those experiences back in helping me and my company and my community succeed. And if each of us can take that attitude of open-mindedness, a proclivity to engage with people around you and in the communities around you, and really step out of your comfort zone and say that, yes, it's okay to go to, not because you're going to be overwhelmed by 500 people who you don't know and now you feel this pressure to network, but because you might meet 2 or 3 people who are going to be really strong connections who will help you take your business and your futures forward.